Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Jazziz Daily Brunch. Thank you very much for joining us again. My name is Brian Zimmerman. I am the digital content editor for Jazziz Magazine, and it's with a heavy heart that we unfortunately have to start the show on a sad note when we heard of the passing of Lee Konitz, a really legendary saxophone player and an icon of bebop and cool jazz. We caught word of his passing last night, and Lee was just one of our favorite players. Between his own work and between his associations with groups led by Miles Davis, Chick Corea, Lenny Tristano, he really kind of, aside from Charlie Parker, was one of the icons, one of the Mount Rushmore figures of the alto saxophone in jazz. So he passed away yesterday at the age of 92 due to complications from COVID-19. We are actually celebrating his life and his legacy on our homepage with today's song of the day, and we invite you to go check it out. But we've got a great show for you in store today, and I don't know about you, but I didn't get a wink of sleep last night. That's been a common thing during these crazy times, but so I brought my supercharged coffee to get me through it. And I'm also very excited. Fortunately, we have an amazing guest to snap me out of my tired stupor. His name is Nick Finzer, and not only is he a good friend of mine and really one of the best trombonists out there at the moment, but he's also a fabulous composer. He's the founder of a record label and media company called Outside In Music. He's an assistant professor of jazz trombone at University of North Texas, and he's the artistic director of the Institute for Creative Music. He's published a book of jazz trombone studies, and he curates an online virtual studio featuring lessons for jazz students. He also has a new album out right now called Cast of Characters. And heck, I'm sure he's run a few Ironman marathons and scaled a few mountains to boot. And for the record, he's not even 35 yet. So he's an amazing guy, and he's making the rest of us millennials look bad. But in all seriousness, no, his record label is doing some amazing things right now for independent musicians during these tough times. And we're going to talk to him about all of that in a minute. But first, I'd like to thank this episode's sponsors. They include Mac Avenue Records. This label has been showing us the road to great music for 20 years now. 2 albums by some great pianists on the horizon. One is Connie Hahn. She has a new album called Iron Starlet coming out soon. And the other is Christian Sands. His new album, Be Water, will be available later this year. They've also got some wonderful reissues from Errol Garner and an all-star tribute to Oscar Peterson called To Oscar with Love. I've seen the 5 LP deluxe edition. It's out right now. It's smoking. To learn more about all these amazing releases, check out macavenue.com. Thanks also to Smoke Sessions Records, really one of the finest straight-ahead jazz labels out there. They have a new album out by saxophonist Wayne Scoffrey right now called The Humble Warrior, and trust me, it is fantastic. Randy Brecker, who was on the show, is on that album. They've also got a recording of a live concert by the late, great Harold Mayburn, a pianist who we lost in 2019. It's called Mayburn Plays Mayburn. To check out these releases, visit smokesessionsrecords.com. Another big thanks to Concord Jazz. So big news for them. The album Ella 100 Live at the Apollo is set for release on April 24th. This is a really exciting album that celebrates the music and life of the First Lady of Song, Ella Fitzgerald. It was recorded live at the storied Harlem, New York venue, the Apollo, in front of an ecstatic audience. And it was produced by the 8-time Grammy and Emmy Award recipient and former Ella Fitzgerald musician, Greg Field. It features some loving tributes from the likes of Andra Day, Ledisi, Liz Wright, Cassandra Wilson, Monica Mancini, and so many more. And it was hosted by the Grammy Award winner Patty Austin and multi-Tony Award nominated actor and singer David Allen Greer. So, as I mentioned, it will be available April 24th, and we're actually going to be speaking with Greg Field, producer of this program, on April 27th, and on a very special Jazz Brunch second course episode. So be sure to tune into that. This episode is also brought to you by Blue Sound, an award-winning wireless high-res sound system that lets you play music in any and every room throughout your home. You can choose your favorite music from any streaming service or your music library. You connect it through a free Blue OS app for your smartphone, tablet, or desktop computer. And really getting the kind of crisp and detailed sound that only an audiophile grade system can deliver has never been easier. We put up a Blue Sound guide on our website for you to check out some products that viewers might enjoy: the Node 2i wireless multi-room high-res streamer and the Pulse Soundbar 2i wireless streaming multi-room sound system. You can learn more about these products on our website or by visiting bluesound.com. Lastly, we want to thank our marketing partner, the folks at jazzmemes.com. Or jazzmemes.org, rather. Let's face it, we're spending a lot of time on the internet these days, and memes are basically how we get through each day. Well, the guys over at Jazz Memes are doing their part to bring some much needed humor into these trying times for jazz musicians, and they've been helping us spread the word about Jazz's Daily Brunch. So we thought in return we would share some of their memes with you, a meme of the day, if you will. Here's today's. It says, "When the piano hasn't been sanitized," and there's Mr. Keith Jarrett doing his thing there. So very funny. Guys at Jazz Memes, thank you again for hooking us up with these memes and helping us spread the word. Again, to check them out, jazzmemes.org. All right. Well, like I said, I'm very excited to talk to today's guest. I mentioned he's a personal friend and an all-around amazing human being. Please welcome Nick Finzer.
Hey, Brian.
Hey, man.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks. Sorry you had to wait so long backstage, but it's good to see you, man.
Good to see you too.
My first question is just always, how are you doing? I check in mentally, physically. How are you coping with this? How have things been going? What are you binge watching? What's going on?
I'm doing okay. I think the first couple of weeks of this situation, I was doing okay, and then it started to sink in later on for me. It wasn't like an immediate thing, and I'm just like, okay, yes, all right. So it's like a slow glide landing down to reality, I think, for me. But I'm doing good. I'm just keeping busy with a lot of projects, and I'm still teaching, so I'm keeping busy with my students, and I'm just trying to do as much as I can to have positive things happening for the artists on the label and for my music, and just trying to keep it rolling.
That's excellent, man. And like you say, you have the teaching, and we'll get into that. You are an assistant professor at University of North Texas, so it's very fortunate that you have that gig. Have you been doing any of the trendy, lockdown stuff, baking the bread, making the creamy coffee, watching the Tiger King, handstand challenge?
Oh, no, I haven't done challenges. I've been saying this to people. We've been doing some artist check-ins with the label, doing like 6-7 artists at a time, and we've been talking about this things to watch, like the Tiger King. I did binge watch the Tiger King.
Nice. Even the new episode with Joel McHale where he talks about the man, there's a new one.
Oh no, I didn't see the new one. I was like, I thought I was done with the Tiger King.
You're never done with the Tiger King, Nick.
That's so funny. Yeah, but I did watch it. But
good, man.
But I'm not a challenge doer, I guess.
That's good.
Challenge giver.
Well, and you are a runner, and I understand that's been helping you cope with things. It's good to get physical, get moving. It really does help.
Yeah, we were talking about that yesterday, and I've been trying to get back to it. I kind of took a while off. I hurt my knee a couple of years ago, but I've been getting back into it, and I'm just trying to up my average.
There you go.
So it's been good.
We were talking beforehand. Yeah, we are both runners. Though you've got long gazelle-like legs. I don't know how tall you are, 700 feet tall. I'm short and stumpy. I ran my first marathon in October.
That's so amazing.
Well, Nick, if you remember back in the day, we can think back to a golden era where October was relatively cool.
Oh, sure.
Here in Florida, it was like 95 degrees. I limped through the end of that thing. I was so cramped.
Yeah,
You see those videos where people like collapse at the finish line?
Mhm.
That was literally me, man. It was not pretty. But hey, I got it done. Put the sticker on the back of that car. Exactly. All good. Well, Nick, man, you are, believe it or not, the first trombonist we've had on the show.
Oh,
yes,
come on.
I know.
Well, thank you. I'm glad.
And I'm glad we're starting with you. You know, I've heard trombone is actually the closest sounding instrument in terms of range and tone and timbre to the male human voice. Is there any truth to that?
I think so. I think that's been true for a long time. There's a lot of people who have talked about that. Duke Ellington used to talk about it, and
Right.
Tricky Sam, Joe Nanton from his band, you know, he was the one that started kind of this Pixie plunger mute thing that's been ongoing through since then. And Lawrence Brown was another person that talked about how close it was to the human voice, and I think it stems all the way back to that era of Ellington. But yeah, it's almost exactly the singing range of my voice. I mean, I can play higher than I can sing, but yeah, no, it's true.
Yeah, and I think that explains, like you were saying, some of the instruments' popularity during the 20s and 30s and 40s. It was an immensely popular instrument, which was a time also of jazz crooners, you know. And then, I don't know, the sex appeal of the trumpet and the saxophone and guitar and jazz kind of took over. And I just feel like trombone is a misunderstood instrument now. It reminds me of the roadkill joke. Have you heard that one?
Oh, no, there's always so many trombone jokes.
Oh, man. Dare I say the roadkill joke?
You go for it. You should.
You're going to make me do it. The difference between roadkill and a jazz trombonist.
No.
The roadkill was probably on its way to a gig. Boom. I'm just kidding. I joke. You are proof that that is certainly not the case. But, you know, I do feel like jazz trombone, it's a misunderstood instrument. So I'm wondering if you could help our listeners out who might not be, you know, as well versed in jazz trombone. Mm-hmm. You are a teacher. If you were given a jazz trombone 101 course, if you know you want to get a feel for this instrument in jazz, start here. What are some of the top albums that you recommend?
Ooh, I'm usually thinking about it from, like you said, like a teacher perspective. What are the best albums to check out jazz trombone vocabulary and to get, you know, information out of them? But
yeah,
listeners, man, well, I'm going to bring up Lawrence Brown. He was like not only a fantastic trombonist and really a pioneer of the instrument and Ellington band member, but also he would sing too. And he put out a record in mid 1950s. It's called Slide Trombone, and it's really a pretty fun album. And I would send people there. I would send people to Wycliffe Gordon. I fell in love with Sliding Home. That was a great one for me. I think some classic J.J. Johnson records that show you just
J.J.'s got to be in there.
Yeah, the beautiful tone of the trombone. And that would be, for me, JJ in Person or the eminent JJ Johnson. Any of those records will give you that. And then I would show you maybe Jack Teagarden, another, maybe going back a little bit, another person that would sing and play. All of his music is basically on compilations at this point. So it might be hard to find the original LPs. So I would just send them to, there's a couple really great YouTube videos of Jack that I might show them.
Cool.
And then I've got to give it up to like my teachers, Steve Teray and Wycliffe. I said Wycliffe already, but Steve Teray and Steve Davis, they have so many great records. I would pick one just to show them the range of the trombone, like how beautiful it can be, also how like raucous it can be. You know, that's where people put it. You know, I get on gigs a lot of times. Oh, I never knew that the trombone could sound like that. And I'm like, I know it's a positive thing, but I think that the trombone sounded like exactly. And I think it's just, you know, the tailgate tradition and the just kind of people think it's loud all the time sometimes, but it can be, and put in the wrong hands, it can be a devastating.
It could be an instrument of war. But it is so it's an incredibly expressive instrument, and I don't think people realize how difficult it is to play some of the idioms of modern jazz, like bebop, some of the super fast stuff. You think about it, you're working with a slide. You know, as a trumpet player, you press a button and you get a new note. Guitar player, you press a fret. Sax player, you're talking about, you know, 1/8 of an inch movements. You've got to articulate every note almost on that thing as you're flying through bebop passages. It's very, very difficult. Yeah,
my teacher, Steve Trey, he used to be like, yeah, he would be talking to maybe a saxophone player or a trumpet player. He'd be like, you try that, but tongue every single note. That's what we have to do.
Exactly, man. Exactly. And you've got a lot of distance to cover with that slide.
Sometimes try to eliminate it as much as possible, but
Yeah. So hats off to you and the rest of the jazz trombone players, because it ain't easy. It ain't easy.
we're trying.
Mick, you mentioned Wycliffe Gordon, and I know he was an early mentor for you. You went to the Eastman School of Music.
Mhm.
Talk about that mentorship a little bit, because I understand you guys met, and he was so impressed. He wound up writing tunes for you.
Yeah, so I first met him when I was in high school. He was coming through. There was a club in downtown Rochester where I grew up, and I went to meet him there and played. We hung out on the break and played a little bit, and then we started a relationship. He was going to try to help me figure out how to get to New York and go to Juilliard, and so I started coming down to his apartment for lessons. It didn't work out. I didn't get into Juilliard, which was okay. I think it worked out for the best. But so during that time in Rochester, there was a great organization called what was it called? The Commission Project, by a great guy named Ned Corman. And Ned had been a supporter of mine through high school and seeing me kind of come up. And he asked, "Hey, is there anyone that you would want to write music for you?" And I was like, "Well, I don't have a band. I don't. What do you mean write music for me?" And he's like, "No, just anyone. Who would you want to do it?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know, Wycliffe Gordon." And I just kind of threw it out there. And then a week later, we had a phone call with him and Wycliffe and saying like, "All right, I want you to write Nick a piece every year for 4 years while he's in school at Eastman." And so, "Nick, what band do you want?" And so we just talked.
Wow.
So there are 4 pieces that he wrote for me. They were all they started as a like small group and kind of grew into there was one big band chart. And so we've played them a couple times. He's recorded one of them. There was one that's called "The Nick of Time," and he recorded it with Andre Hayward on a record. It's a while ago now, but that was really cool. And so we've kind of stayed in touch over the years. But that was kind of the start of that whole thing.
That's amazing. Do you have any of those in your noggin? Any of those tunes that Wycliffe wrote early on?
I don't. They're not in my noggin. I know the title. The title stand out in my mind, but I have them all in a folder out in the other room.
Cool, man. Yeah, Wycliffe. Oh, and here's my daughter. She's a fan too.
Nice.
I'm talking. Yeah, go ask mommy. Budding jazz trombone player. Hey, that's the way things are going these days. You call up businesses and you hear like customer service. There's always kids crying in the background and so on and so forth. But that's right. We'll get her on trombone lessons soon enough.
There we go.
I was going to say, one of the things I like about you, you're obviously an incredibly talented trombone player and improviser, but your writing is absolutely a strong suit, man. You are a phenomenal composer. Oh. And you've got the 2 ASCAP Herb Alpert awards for young composers to prove it. Rare that you'd win that twice, man. So kudos to you. And one of the things I love about your writing, especially when it comes to albums, is that you really kind of emphasize, you really stress the idea of having a concept, a broader concept for a jazz album, which I feel like is becoming a lost art. So many albums just feel like collections of tunes. Yours always feel holistic, like completed wholes. I'm thinking of, there was the Here and Now, the recent one, which you were kind of taking ensembles of past generations, capturing the energy of those past generations, like the John Coltrane Quartet, Duke Ellington Ensemble, Chick Corea, and then filtering them through your this generation's jazz sensibility. Similar with your album No Arrival, which had this theme of like progress, right? There's no arrival, only the journey, and a lot of the songs spoke to that. Your new album is Cast of Characters. I've been spinning it a lot. It's really, really good. What would you say the concept for that album is?
Well, it's funny that you took away from it something different than I did with those previous records. Those previous records didn't have enough of that concept. So that's really interesting for me to hear and good for me to hear.
No, I felt it, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, I always thought I had a little bit of a concept, but I really wanted to be overt this time and try to make this is going to be more of a concept thing. And so it's still kind of about that idea of a journey, but it's more about the people in your life that you encounter, whether that's mentors, whether it's family, whether it's love interest, current or past or future. And I wanted people to be able to put their own life experiences into like an archetype of a person. So I was thinking more about like what it feels like to be mentored or what it feels like to miss a family member, or what it feels like, and thinking about that feeling kind of as the inspiration for the characters, rather than being like, well, this song is about this person and this song is
Right.
about this person. So that was the idea anyway. I don't know if it comes across necessarily, but that was the concept of the record. And then so I wrote a bunch of character pieces and then kind of took them down to just the 6 that are on the record. And I mean, some of them are about certain people. Like one is about for Duke Ellington and his inspiration to me. But then there's kind of these other pieces that kind of are more like the journey that gets you between these situations in life and between people, mentors, etc. And so then I kind of put it into a stream of what I thought was a nice, journey through the music, but also kind of tells a storyline if you read the titles a little
Yep.
bit. And then I also wanted to make sure that I put it out in a way that could be easily digestible in small chunks, but also that it could be listened to all the way through. So I wanted all of those aspects. I don't know how successful it was at all of them, but at some of them, it was definitely successful.
Totally. And what's great about you, you're so kind of savvy when it comes to the modern media landscape. You went above and beyond. Like I saw the video that you did for "You'll Never Know the Alternative," which is that the correct name of the title? "You'll Never Know the Alternative." It's a sequence of songs on the disc, and you filmed a video for it. That's on YouTube. And in the description for the video, you explain kind of what went into the thinking of that song and how it related to the concept, and how it speaks to this notion that you cannot get hung up on choices, the alternatives to choices that you made, because you'll never know what happened. And that spoke to me, because I am the king. Anyone who's ever had to decide where to go to, for dinner knows that I am the king of second guessing myself.
Exactly.
So that was very cool to see you do that. Again, it takes the whole album concept idea, which was big back in the day, and translates it to a new medium, which is, YouTube. Mm-hmm. So, and I know that's something you stress too in your online lessons. Yeah. People ask you, what advice can you give on making an album? And that's a recurring theme.
It is.
So Nick, I mean, you've got all these great albums out there. You're in the Anat Cohen Tentet. You've performed with Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra. Which, did you see their concert for Our Culture last night?
I didn't get to see it. So
it was great, man.
Watch the recording.
That has a Jazziz recommends stamp of approval on it. It was great. But you're a young guy. You're at the height of your career. What made you want to start a record label, man?
Well, I started it not thinking it was going to be much of anything. Back when I put out my very first record, a bunch of labels said no to the first one. And I said, well, guess what? I'm going to do this myself.
So this would have made you how old? Because you're how old now?
I'm 31 right now.
Okay.
I'll be 32 in May. So I'm almost 32. But this would have been in 2012. So 8 years ago. So 24.
You're all of 24. Yeah. Starting your own record label.
Pretty much when I was finishing up grad school. And so I was like, what should I do but make a record?
As you do.
And so and I didn't think it was going to be anything, and I just started it. And then about 4 or 5 years later, after having the same conversation with lots of friends about how do you do this? How do you do this? How do you do this?
Right.
I realized it was faster if I just did it all myself. And so I was like, well, just let me do it and send it to me, and I'll just get it up for you. It's fine. Like, I'll do it. And so then I was like, oh, this could be something. And when before, from 2014 to 16, I taught at Florida State University up in Tallahassee. And I was teaching there 1 day a week or 2 days a week, something like that. And when I left that job, I decided I was going to kind of build up the record label as my kind of secondary to performing mission. And that was 2016. And that's when I kind of started taking it more seriously and started talking to my friends like, hey, I'm really going to do this record label thing. And in 2017, I did Here and Now came out, which was my record. And I tried to really kind of start pushing from there. And then we've been doing 35 releases it's 2019, 2018. So it's grown pretty fast, but it grew out of just wanting to help my friends basically. And, it's taken on a life of its own. But I always like to say that it's a record label and media company, because I'm really always telling the artist that it's like, yeah, records are great, but it's only one part of the overall package of what you have to be thinking about. And sometimes we as artists for sure get caught up in the fact of just the music, just the music, just the music, just the music. So I try to wake them up a little bit to other things, and it's more or less receptive. Some people are more into it than others, but that's what we're doing, and that's kind of how it started.
And I think that's what distinguishes you guys is you're so on top of, the media fluency, which is essential, to success as a jazz musician these days. How much of your time, because again, I don't know how you do it. You must have more hours in the day than the rest of us. How much of your time is devoted to the label compared to your teaching and playing?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say, well, right now the playing is down to minimal,
Well, yeah.
but
Yeah.
I don't know. It goes in waves, I think. Like during school, the busy parts of school, I'm mostly focused on teaching. And then there's sometimes where I'm really, really focused on the label, being able to do that. And it goes, so for me, it goes in spurts. I'm not so much good at balancing everything. I'm more good at like diving into one thing and then the next thing and then the next thing. So um, I now have a team that helps with the label. So it's not just me anymore. So I have two other people that are helping with the different things that we do. So that has been a lifesaver. I couldn't have grown it or kept it going without them.
Yeah.
So,
Nice, man.
I don't know, third, a third, and a third.
Okay. Hey, that's healthy. That's a good way to split it. Okay. So let's say, because we've got some independent artists listening, and hey, might want to shout out independent artists. We know you are listening. Check out our inside track program at jazziz.com. Nick knows all about it. We see his outside in stuff all the time. And it winds up in our playlist and song of the day, so on and so forth. Nick will have an ad in our upcoming summer 2020 issue. Oh, by the way, that reminds us, Nick, you're going to be among the first to see a sneak peek of that cover. Do you want to take a look, folks listening? This is the cover of our upcoming 2020 summer 2020 issue. It is all about fusion, and there's the man, the myth, the legend, Chick Corea. We've got an extended interview with him in this issue, and we're kind of playing off his Now He Sings, Now He Sobs cover. But the issue is all about fusion. It will be sent out to subscribers in June 2020. If you want to become a subscriber, now's a chance. We're offering 3 months of unlimited digital access to our website for just 99 cents per month. Plus, as a special, we're going to enroll you to receive one free quarterly print issue, and it's going to be this summer 2020 issue. So now is the time to sign up. Thanks for showing that, Jeff. And sorry to go on that tangent, Nick, but
I love Chick Corea.
What do you think of the cover? Pretty cool, huh?
Oh, yeah, it's great.
Yeah, man. So we got a long interview with Chick. It's going to be a good issue. I was going to say, so independent artists may be listening out there. They want to start a record, or they want to release a record. Okay. Just from your perspective, you've been in this business a while. Ballpark, how much time is it going to take? How much is it going to cost? And what are some of the unforeseen costs that may crop up during this process?
Oh, sure. Well, the unforeseen costs usually come in the form of time and delays. So this is the other question, which is how long is it going to take? I keep on pushing back a little bit against the artist to have longer lead times because, let's just take jazz as an example. You guys do great, amazing online content that turns around really fast, but also the print magazine only comes out four times a year, right?
Yep, it's quarterly.
So if you want your magazine, you have to have it in 6 months, 8 months, ahead of time for them
to be pretty early. Yeah.
Or maybe being able to cover it. So it's like, well, you have to have this materials together. So the biggest thing that artists don't realize is how much lead time that they need to have. That's the number one thing that they struggle with. And so trying to get them thinking about that sooner. Generally, I didn't believe this ballpark cost when somebody told it to me, but if you want to kind of hire all the whole team and really do it well, you're looking somewhere $12,000 to $14,000 all in. If you want to hire the team, do you have to hire the traditional publicist and radio person?
Right.
You don't have to, but to me, I've always felt like if you want to participate in the industry, you have to play by the rules and also break the rules, but you have to at least, at some point get in front of the people who care about jazz, which is the jazz industry. And that's what I tell the artists, that like, you don't have to spend all of your money on one project. However, you should think about that these are the people you want to reach. This is the way that you reach them, and this is what it will cost if you decide to do it. But I always tell artists the biggest thing is to live to fight another day, because you can't put out one record. Because if you put there's how many artists could you look through a bin of like, oh yeah, one record, or two records, but it's the people that make 5, 10, 25 records and they have a whole career of making music, or that are the ones that we remember. So I try to give them more of a longitudinal view of that. But I mean, obviously you can cut costs by, asking your friends to play for free and things like that, and trying to, cut all the corners. But when it comes down to it, it's going to cost a bunch of money, and you got to save up. You got to find grant resources, and you got to find creative ways to do it. When I did my first record, I did a Kickstarter, and that kind of kicked off that first record. I had my friends from school play on the record, and then I took every single dime from that record, put it towards the next record, every single dime from that next record, put it towards the next record. And it just a slow kind of building over, that was 2012, 2013, and now 2020. So it's just one thing after the next. And like I said, living to fight another day.
Right, man. And how does, aligning yourself with a label like Outside In benefit in ways that just going about it yourself might not?
Well, we like to say that, since it was great that the internet liberated everything, but now kind of it's about curation again. And being part of a community of like-minded artists can be beneficial in that, we do artist events, and sometimes we have another project coming out soon that we got a day in the studio, had all the artists come in and play each other's music, and so it's a cross promotion kind of thing. And so being a part of a community, having access to other people that are doing it. I mean, you can go on CD Baby and put your stuff out, but you're not going to have a direct conduit to the people that know the people in the industry. So I say, like, well, I do know some people. I don't know everybody, but I can get someone to call Spotify for you, and I can get somebody to call Apple Music. Like, we have an artist whose account was mapped to, instead of his name, to a Russian rapper, and obviously you don't want that. So
unless you're into Russian rap, man,
But he was like, "Oh, this is kind of a problem." So it's like, it's nice that I can have a person. So I just like to say, being part of a community and having access to people that you wouldn't normally have access to.
Yeah.
And just, the main thing I stress is just like the community, and just having people to talk to and having people to associate yourselves with. A lot of the people that we put out their music are people it happens to be around my age and from New York at this point. It's because that's kind of my community. But that those are the things that I stress, because you can do everything on your own, but you can learn something from doing it with some people that maybe have done it before.
I agree, man. I agree. And, now it's just weird times for everybody, people trying to put out music, people trying to listen to music. But is it especially tough time for independent artists? Those gigs, which are the lifeblood of, indie jazz musicians economy, have all but dried up. What is Outside In doing at this moment to kind of help? And on the flip side of that, what can we do as listeners, as music consumers, to help the independent musicians whose music, give us so much joy?
Well, the things that we're doing first is we're hosting every week. We're calling them quarantine happy hour chats. We've been having the artists come on to be able to share what they're up to. A lot of them are doing live streams. A lot of them are doing concerts, being part of concert series, starting concert series. We have, 60 or 70 artists at this point. So they're doing a lot of different things. And so we're trying to give them a platform to do that, to share what they're up to. And the other thing that we're doing is, starting a kind of like a white label service, where if you're feeling like you don't want to be on a label, but you do want to get your music out, and you're maybe doing some projects right now and don't know how to get the music out, don't have the $50 to spend on CD Baby, that kind of pushes all the financial aspect to the back end so that they can get it out now and get it out for free.
Wow.
So we're doing that. So a couple things have come through, but it takes a couple weeks to get things moving onto Spotify and Apple Music and such. But we're doing that, so we're trying to open that up to as many people as possible. And as listeners of the music, the best thing you can do is go to the artists' websites and get stuff from them directly.
Okay.
Go watch the live streams and donate to them directly. there's lots of grant opportunities, but they're closing so fast. The artists most of the time aren't having a chance to even apply for them. I know two that opened and closed on the same day this week, and because there's so much need, because artists are, on the margins of society and are kind of month to month, week to week in terms of paychecks and stuff like that. Not all of them, but many of them. And so as much as you can do to go directly to the artist, I mean, it's great. It's great if you listen on Spotify. It's great if you listen on Apple Music, download on iTunes. But if you just go one more step and get it right from them, they get a much bigger piece of the pie when you do spend your $5 or $10. So taking the extra 2 clicks to go to their website is super, super valuable to the artist. So if you have that time to do it, all the artists I know would really, really appreciate it.
Buy the CDs, buy the MP3s, buy the merch. Yeah, now is the time. You mentioned live streaming, and yes, now everyone, it seems, is live streaming. But you were on top of the video lesson game, way before anybody else. I mean, you have really been doing this for a long time. In my research, I came across one recently. I think it was part of your, what'd you call it? Connect, Create, Repeat. Yeah. Yes, series that, I connected with just as a writer. It was a video where you talk about failing fast. You've got to fail fast and you've got to fail often, to get through the bad ideas. And so again, that lesson really spoke to me as a writer, as a, media professional. And I'm wondering for our people listening, because you are a teacher, when you go into a classroom, when you teach online, so on and so forth, what are some of the biggest lessons you try to instill, not related to music, but related to something like creativity, that any of our listeners would be able to take away in their creative pursuits as they inevitably start their own live stream shows? Oh, sure. I'm just kidding. But those big lessons that have to do with, things outside of music.
Yeah. So I usually try to instill two ideas into, my students about these types of big picture ideas. Is one is, you kind of went right to it, is that you have to try a whole bunch of stuff and you have to keep moving. And creativity is a practice. It's not a bolt of inspiration, at least for me and from my perspective. Like when I'm in a flow of doing writing every day or practicing every day, the creativity comes. Like it's not from just waiting until a lightning bolt strikes and then I can write. And if I'm writing, I will write better music than if I wait. So I try to tell them, you got to do that. And then you have to do everything your teacher says.
Okay, fair enough.
However, you have to take what everyone says and you have to create your own, vision and journey with that information. So I always tell my students, like, this is how I do it. And this is some other ways that other people do it. And now you need to do it for yourself and figure out what parts of my ideas work and what parts don't, and what parts of, this person's work. I said, because I view this, whether it's playing the trombone or talking about writing music or talking about putting music out, everyone needs to kind of go into themselves and try to be 100% themselves, because sometimes people are like, well, all I want to do is play standards and I don't know if anybody cares to hear it. And I'm gonna say, well, no, it's inevitably going to sound exactly right you without you doing anything. And the whole conversation of like, I don't have a voice or I need to develop my voice or whatever. It's like, it comes naturally through studying, having mentors, and actually listening to yourself and trying to figure out what it is you want to say. Cause we have, the shoulds are going to come and get you, so like they're going to tell you to play this way or that way, or write this or write that, or create this. But you have to do what you want to do ultimately, or else, I mean, what are we doing all this for? That's how I feel about it. But
I hear you, man. There's no such thing as a perfect copy, is what I've heard. Even if you try to do something, your fingerprints are all over it, and so it's still very much you. Very cool, man. Nick, where can people kind of follow along with what's going on with you and outside in music? Because I know you've got a bunch of releases coming up. Where's the best place to follow along?
Sure. So for me, I'm probably most active on Instagram. So at Nick Finzer is where I'm posting everything about my own stuff, and you can find YouTube videos, etc. And then outside of music, you can go to outsideinmusic.com and you can see all the new releases there. And that's probably the best place to check out outside of music information. But yeah, you can find all the other links from those places. So I'm not going to list a whole bunch of things.
Cool beans, man. The new album, Cast of Characters, is out now.
Yep.
Buy it, folks.
Appreciate that.
It is really good. Go ahead, check out Nick Finzer online and buy that album. Yeah, there's, see, we get comments from folks online. Here's the Monarch Music. Go to the Artist website and buy the CDs and the merch. Now is the time. I couldn't agree more. Look, we're all live stream. We're all got those Zoom meetings. We want to look good. A nice artist t-shirt, sticker,
It's a
way to do it. It's a conversation starter for sure. Nick Finzer, thank you so much for joining me on the brunch today. I really appreciate it, man. This your insight is valuable, and I hope some of the independent artists listening certainly take it to heart, because you are a great teacher, and you have a lot of knowledge to share at all of 31 years old, man.
Well, thanks for having me on, Brian. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Be safe, be healthy, and we'll be hearing from you, man. Cheers, Nick.
Cheers.
Bye. All right. Thanks a lot again to our guest, Nick Finzer. His new album, Cast of Characters, is out right now. Go buy it. As I mentioned, our new issue, the June 2020 album, the June 2020 summer issue will be out very soon. You saw the cover. Become a subscriber now to receive that issue come June. We're going to wrap up this week of Jazz's Daily Brunches tomorrow with drummer Peter Erskine. So be sure to tune into that. That's going to be an amazing conversation. Until then, everyone, stay safe, stay healthy. To any, first responders, healthcare professionals, essential workers, grocery store workers listening, it really warms our heart that, the thought of you guys out there taking something away from this podcast and bringing you some sense of joy. That's really reassuring for us. And truly, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. So that'll do it for me, everyone. We'll see you next time on The Brunch. So long.